Today we're going to turn this sad but solid little piece into a custom work of art really easy with just a few changes. So get comfy and take notes. I'm about to help you up your furniture game. You're up, old girl. Time to transform you. Hey guys, welcome back to the studio. Today I want to talk about maximizing your return on your investment pieces and how to really capitalize on what you're doing so that you can get the most profit back possible. Because that's the name of the game in furniture. You can take a piece just like this from dated to desired with just a little know-how and some elbow grease. And I am going to share my tips and tricks with you guys today. Now there are really simple things that you can actually do to dated pieces to bring them up in value, make them worth more to others, make them more desirable, and make them sell faster. Simple things really, such as changing the base, giving it a more modern, slimlined look. Hardware is your number one important thing to think about that can make or break your project. You need to think of hardware like as the jewelry that it is, and it has to complement the outfit that you're going to give it. It can't overpower the outfit, it can't clash with the outfit. Everything has to go cohesively. So hardware is actually a very critical decision that you're going to have to make in your furniture flipping journey. Other things that you're going to need to take into consideration when it comes to maximizing your profit is to decide, what are you going to sell? Are you going to stick with safe neutrals that tend to have a much broader audience? More people will want them and they tend to move quicker. Or are you going to be like me and do more custom pieces that are really more functional works of art? In which case, that's more of a niched down audience, making my reach much smaller. And sometimes you actually have to hold on to the pieces for a while. So whether or not you can store these pieces indefinitely will play a big factor into which route you should take as a furniture flipper. If you just don't have the room to hold on to something, you have to make it more appealing. And to me, that's just going safe with neutrals. And neutrals can be blues and grays and greens. It's just not bringing it to the level of art, which we all know is where I like to take things. And this piece is going to be no different. I have an idea. I have a really good idea. I have another Alice in Wonderland decoupage. This one is a huge one. As you can see, it has not been steamed. This is what I'm kind of thinking, and I know you're like, what are you gonna do with this giant decoupage on such a small table? But let me show you what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that Alice fits on this piece perfectly. Her feet will actually come to the base, which I have an idea to do something to the base and something to the top while we play off of good old Alice coming here in the center. Now, one thing I noticed, this is brand new, and I can see two tears in this paper. See that right there? There's a little tear right there, and another little tear right over here. And I'm not even gonna worry about that at all. I think that this is a great choice for this little curbside piece. And yes, this came from the curbside. This was free. I paid nothing for it. This solid wood piece is from the Sweet Cummings company, and they were from Richford, Vermont. Now, this was produced in the 50s. This company is well known for building their furniture using northern hardwoods, such as maple. And I do believe that this is a solid maple piece. There is some serious weight to it, so pretty sure it's a maple piece. This is quality. The drawers are dovetailed on both ends. That's also a sign of quality. Usually dovetail is only up at the front where it pulls out and you can see it. The backs are usually just attached together. So when you actually have a piece with piggyback dovetails, you know you have a quality piece of furniture. And I love working on quality furniture because they don't make it like this anymore. You cannot go to IKEA and buy something of this quality. So I love finding these treasures and being able to keep them from a landfill and give them a new life And this one is gonna have an amazing new life. So let's get this project rolling. I am gonna take you through all of the steps I go through to maximize my return, which so far for this print right now, the print I'm going to use on it is $10. That's what I have into this right now without any time, without anything. A $10 print. So that's where we're starting. Your first step with any piece of furniture that you're going to do is to give it a thorough cleaning, and you want to make sure you use a degreasing product. That could be Dawn dish liquid, that could be a TSP, that could be Crud Cutter, it could be White Lightning, Simple Grain. There are lots of choices out there. Just make sure what you're using is in fact a degreaser. This piece is from the 50s. I don't know how many times it's been polished with Pledge or anything else, and you want something that's going to get all of that old crud and old wax and old buildup off. We need to start with an absolutely clean foundation. If we don't, everything that we put on top of it will slide off. So it's very important to make sure that you start with a very clean base. Cleaning. So gross. Once the piece has been cleaned, now is the time to do any repairs on it that you might have. If it has a broken corner, if it has any gouges, anything that you need to do to fix it to get it to where you want to start the project, now is the time to do that. That also includes any changes you're going to make to the piece, which I'm going to show you what I'm going to do to the piece shortly. Now is the time to also think about your hardware. This one initially had hardware that has 2 holes in it. I put a lot of thought into the hardware I'm going to use to go with my paper, and I know that these 2 holes will actually work for what I'm doing, so I don't have to fill them in. If you have to change the hardware holes at all, I suggest either changing them with dowels or with a Bondo. If I did have to change these, I would be using Bondo, and the first step is to actually tape off the inside holes that are in there with tape, because as you're pushing the Bondo in to fill the holes, you don't want it oozing out into your drawer, and the tape will prevent it from oozing through and also give you a really smooth finish when you're done on the inside. I do want to change these drawers, and I do want to change the base. As you can see, these drawers have a flat surface, a lip, and then it goes to the curve. And what I'm gonna do is I'm actually gonna sand this lip off and just make the whole surface curved and smooth. That is gonna make putting my paper on so much easier. And this dated base has to go. I'm not a fan of these curves that come, and there's a very easy way to change these, and I'm gonna show you how. What I'm gonna do is square off all of these points, and then I'm actually going to cut the fanciness out. The best way to do this is to make your marks underneath with a black marker you can see through. Then you're gonna put tape over the mark you're going to cut on, retrace that line, and make your cut. Cutting over the tape is going to ensure that you don't splinter off the wood on your piece, which totally can happen. So let me find the square up points to this and show you how we're gonna change the space. And now you can see how we're gonna just square the space right up. Look at that, no more curves. And it's funny because on the back, there's no curve. So we remove them from the sides as well. My plan, I think, for this piece is I would like to strip the base and the top and have them stained. I think that would complement the Alice print a lot. There's a lot of warm tones in that print, and I think it would look really good, especially against this beautiful maple wood. those clean straight lines, no more dated colonial point. That looks really, really good. All right, I am gonna call it a night. It is Halloween. I have places to go and things to do, but we'll come back at this tomorrow and we're gonna sand it and we're gonna prep it and get it ready for its new life. Good morning, guys. Time to get back to work on our beautiful little project. I touched upon the fact that I want to stain the top and stain the base, and I still do want to do that. So I need to remove the old finish before I can do anything. So I figure let's get that off. Let's see what the acetone does. I kind of have good luck with that, so let's start there. I'm going to use my acetone with some double yacht steel wool. That's going to ensure that I'm not going to scratch the wood, but I'm just going to remove the finish and hopefully the stain and get down and see what that grain has to offer. But I love using acetone instead of stripper. It's a great alternative. This is what happens when your glove breaks when you're working with acetone. I don't even know why I try to look like a girl. Next, I'm going to sand everything I stripped, and I am going to start with a 120, and then I'm going to move it up to a 220 for that really smooth finish. Once I had the top completely sanded, I noticed that there were some dark stains to this wood. I'm pretty sure that you're going to see those, so I am going to have to try to get those off before I actually put the stain on here. And I think the best way to do that's with oxalic acid, but I'm going to think on this for a minute before I make any decisions. I just know they have to go for sure. Next, I wanted to sand the draw fronts and get rid of that lip that's there so that it's way easier to decoupage over. I'm going to go back over this piece with just a little bit of spackle to fill that line in because I don't want the lines to show when I am patting the decoupage in place, because that's something you have to consider because they would in fact show. So it doesn't have to be perfect right now. I am going to use just a little bit of spackle and it's going to take care of any problem areas that might remain. But these drawers are getting a total makeover with a completely different look, and I think it's going to look great. For the stain, I'm actually going to make a custom combination that I've used before, and it's a really warm, beautiful combination. So to start, I am going to use a chestnut gel stain. Those that know me know I only like to use gel stains because I can manipulate them so much more than I can if it was a penetrating stain. Then once I have all of the areas, except for the top, we're still holding off on the top. We're doing the columns, and we're doing the base, and we're doing the edges of the top, just not the complete top yet. But once all of those are completely covered in the gel stain chestnut, I'm going to let that sit for a few minutes. Then I'm going to go right back over that with hickory gel stain. And the combination is this beautiful, warm, weathered, worn look that just looks so good. And I think it's going to complement the Alice print and the overall vision on this design perfectly. So I'm going to cover all of my stain areas in that as well. And then we can get working on the top, because that needs addressing. I've been thinking about this top and these dark stains that are on it, and I think what I'm going to do is use a little oxalic acid on here, see if I can get those dark stains to come out. You can also use hydrogen peroxide. That works very well to get stains out, and sometimes it doesn't even work. It just depends on how deep and dark and all different other qualities to it. But 99% of the time you will be able to get light dark marks and impurities and imperfections off of the wood using hydrogen peroxide and or oxalic acid. I'm going to start with the acid. When using oxalic acid, you want to make sure you are in a well-ventilated area and using the proper PPE. You definitely don't want to be breathing in the dust of the oxalic acid, so make sure you have on a mask. You want some glasses and some gloves to protect yourself. Always be safe. while the acid is doing its thing on the top, I'm actually going to start priming the drawers, and before I prime them, I'm going to tape the inside of the hardware holes. That's going to prevent anything from getting inside of my drawers because they're in really good condition and I don't want to have to work on them. So a little tape will save you a lot of aggravation. Once the tape was on all of them, I went with my Sticks primer. I usually use a gray primer, but working with decoupage, it has to be white. I want to use the Sticks. It's going to be the best on my piece. I won't have to sand it. This stuff sticks to anything. It's been a while and I've actually done a few applications of the oxalic acid on the top, and now it's time to get it off, and we're at wherever we're at this point. So I have a borax and water mixture I'm spraying all over the piece, and using some double yacht steel wool I am going to go over it and see what we have, see how it looks. Hopefully it took some of it away. I mean, it looks really bad right now, I'm not going to lie, but here's to hoping that I'm going to be able to do something and salvage this big, beautiful top and make my vision come together. As you can see, the oxalic acid worked really, really well. It took a lot of that out. The top is beautiful, but there are still some very dark spots, as you can see on the edge. I did go over it with the first stain, and this is what it looks like. So I decided with the second stain on top, the same as we did on the base, I'm just going to have to go a little bit harder and heavier. And I'm going to use my brush to kind of create striations and blend the dark spots in, meaning I'm going to create kind of more dark spots across the top so that it all looks cohesive and intentional and not like something that I don't even know what happened to it to do that. I don't believe that's how the wood looks. I believe something at some point was on this table, but I am going to fix it to the absolute best of my capabilities and make the entire thing look really good. That top came out a lot better than I thought it was going to, but now we have to let this whole thing dry, and I need to let my primer cure for the night. You know me, I am always preaching that there is a huge difference between something that's just dry and something that's cured. And when you're working with decoupage, you want to make sure that your base is cured, not dried, because you can reactivate it with the medium, and you don't want to do that. You want everything in place, spend all that time and hard work on it, and you want it to last, so let it cure. I'm gonna let this sit for the night. I'll get my decoupage ready, and tomorrow we are gonna turn this into a work of art. It's actually been a couple of days. I got a little sidetracked, so this piece has been sitting and it's definitely cured. I even got a coat of spray poly on all of the stained areas and it's looking really good. So now it's time for me to concentrate on getting Alice on the front. I am going to use my medium. I always use Elmer's glue with just a little bit of water mixture in it. I want it still thick, but not so thick that it's hard to move around. I want it a fluid thick, because when I'm working with decoupage, my very first layer is going to be an incredibly thin layer. You do not want to overload your product with whatever medium you're using. That is going to cause wrinkles when it dries. When your decoupage and the medium dry, it kind of shrinks up. And if you have too much product underneath the paper, that's where your wrinkles come from. So for wrinkle-proof decoupage each and every time, make sure you steam your decoupage paper beforehand. And I'm going to get my medium on very, very thin. I am also going to apply my decoupage on this while it's in the vertical position. I don't want the drawers to move and shift, and they will. If you turn it backwards to do it flat and horizontal, they will not sit where they're going to sit standing. In this way, I'm able to get the drawers in exactly the position they need to be in, and I'll be able to work the decoupage around it and then touch up underneath it when we're done. If I lost any of you during that, you will understand it as I go. Now it's time to make the magic happen and turn this piece of furniture into functioning art. To start, I measured out the area that I need for the front of my piece, and I'm going to cut my decoupage. I'm cutting it a little bit bigger than I need to ensure that I will reach the edges, because I do have to do a little folding and tucking, if you will, around the corners. Where this piece is not completely flat, I'm going to have to do a little magic when it comes to working the corners of each and every drawer. It's not difficult, and the secret to doing this is you have to let each corner section dry before moving on to the next. If something is wet above you, you cannot tuck it properly. It's going to move, it's going to pull off. The secret to this entire technique is patience when you're working with a piece such as this. You have to let things dry in between and hold their spot so that you can maneuver around the shape. Tuck it in, smooth it out, get rid of any creases, get rid of any lines. Concentrate on your work and take your time. That is the most important thing. Take time. Patience is a virtue when you're working with decoupage, especially with drawers that have a shape like this. While I was waiting for certain areas to dry, I decided I was going to put the sides on. I need to have one straight edge and one feathered edge. The straight edge on each side is the edge that touches the columns, and the feathered edge will be the edges towards the back of the piece. Now, to get my feathered edge, I'm just going to use water and a paintbrush. I want the most of this photo, so I'm actually going to make my water line super close to the edge, but not close enough where I'm going to grab any of that white. And to tear my paper, you have to tear it away from the decoupage, meaning if you hold the paper with your right hand that's going on the piece, with your left hand you are going to tear downward and away from that paper, especially on paper that has a white background. If you don't and you tear upward, you're going to actually pull the color off the paper and you're going to get one of those halos. Totally avoidable, so always pull away from the print. That way the color stays in place. Now before I call it a night and let the piece sit and cure, I want to get my base layer of the blend on, and I'm going to do that using my Dixie Belle paint in shades of blues and browns. This is just the base layer and it's not supposed to look good, it's just going to give me a foundation that I can build off of tomorrow once everything is sat and cured. Good morning, guys. We are going to finish this piece up. It dried nice and smooth. It looks really good. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a very sharp razor, cut all of this excess off. Then we're going to do the blends on the side, and you saw me very quickly get the base of the blend, and I will go a little bit more into depth about blending decoupage into your paint, but you want to get the base to where you're starting with on your paper, which in this case was very dark with shades of blues and brown and even black, which I haven't gone in with yet, but this will be the layer I do that. So that's what we're going to work on today. I'm hoping to finish this up. I want to see it done, so I am going to get my very sharp razor and very carefully and very slowly cut all of the excess off. everything's cut and the drawers have even been done, you will notice that there is a white ring around each drawer opening, if you will. That's because of the lip on the drawer. So, in addition to blending my sides, I'm gonna have to go back in and blend this top to match the colors that are there. It's not as hard as it sounds either. And it doesn't have to be incredibly detailed because it's behind the drawer. You won't see that. So that's more of a color match. So when you open it, your eye just sees all cohesive colors together, basically. We have our base on with all of the multiple colors. And to pick the base, you're going to look at your paper like I did and look at what is in the background and mimic that with paints. Your base is not going to be perfection. It's going to be very spotty, and you might even kind of be like, ugh, am I doing it right? Just trust the process because you totally are doing it right. I'm gonna get my next layer and blend on, and this one's gonna actually be more blended. Your best friend with blending is a mister. See that mist? It's a very fine mist. It's not like a squirt bottle that gives a lot of water. This is a very fine mist. You can get these off of Amazon, and they make blending so much easier because as your paint dries as you go, you give it a gentle little mist. Not a lot. You don't want to overload it with water because you'll end up with drips and you'll take the pigment out of the paint. It's water. But a little does go a long way when it comes to blending your piece together. The most important thing to remember when you're working with a blend is to step back and look at it. Don't just look at it up close, you know. Get back, look at it as a whole, look at it as a picture. Change your perspective of view. That is gonna help you so much with the blend. As long as you have the colors in the background of your decoupage, the blend will kind of tell you which direction it needs to go. And it will tell you that by stepping back and looking at your work. You'll be able to see where you need more blue or brown or green or yellow, whatever the case may be. Always step back and look. All right. I'm gonna get my blend on. When you're working the blend, you want to make sure that you have all of the colors that you see in the background of your decoupage. And you don't have to get too technical. A blend will allow you to fade it out into something that might be more manageable for you at the moment to take on and feel good about. Because blends can be scary, but I promise you, once you find your method, you'll get in your groove and you are going to do just fine. I am a pouncer. I pounce for my blends, and you also need to remember that it might not look good even with the second layer of the blend going on. Sometimes it takes 3, 4, I've even seen as many as 5 layers going on to a blend. It really depends on how intricate the background is and what you're trying to accomplish. Are you trying to continue the picture completely, in which case it would take a whole lot more in some artistic talent because you'll have to recreate the images where it stops to where it would continue, as opposed to just doing a blend. Think Monet, where the colors just kind of fade into each other, but they do it in a cohesive way that goes with your decoupage. The biggest thing I can tell you is to have confidence in yourself and don't get frustrated. If you find yourself getting frustrated with the blend, stop and walk away. Also, don't forget to let each layer cure in between. It's especially important for things to cure when you're working with a blend because water is involved, and if they're not cured and you spritz water over the base you already have, it's going to reactivate it and it can pull the paint off. So patience is a virtue when it comes to blending because you do need to wait and let things cure and settle and always step back and look at the big picture. This was a very easy blend to continue and to keep the illusion going, and I absolutely love how it turned out. The hardware is the aspect that can make or break your piece, and I happen to have 4 acrylic draw pulls left over from a previous project, and They ended up being perfect. One, because I didn't have to re-drill any holes to install them. The bases of them are adjustable, so they can go to any width that you need, from the narrowest of narrow to the widest of wide. The gold on this hardware is absolutely perfect with this Alice paper, and you can see Alice very clearly through those acrylic bars. The right hardware can really bring you a true profit because it brings your vision to life full circle for others to see. Now it's time for me to blend in the white halo that is left around this drawer from where the decoupage was cut. And this is a very easy one to do because it's behind a drawer. I don't really have to do anything except for continue the exact same color so that when you pull the drawer open and your eye sees it, everything looks cohesive and as one. So I'm just going to use some acrylic paints, start dabbing it on, and it covers it up wonderfully. Once I do have that on, I'm going to seal the piece one last time, and we are done. Well, guys, she is done in all of her glory, and this was the absolute best choice for her. I hope you enjoyed coming along. I hope you learned something. I hope you took notes. It's very easy to take a piece from dated to darling, as you saw today, with simple changes such as changing the base or hardware. You could even take the base completely off and add legs, and the look would be completely different then. It is all up to you, and it is all up to your vision and how far you want to take it. But you also need to know when to stop, because you could keep going and keep going and keep going, and you don't want to. There is always a point you need to stop at. I did seal the top with shellac. I wanted the top to be very, very shiny and very durable. I sealed the rest of it with a good polyacrylic spray. Now, I wish I was able to keep the grain the way that it was, but even manipulating it a little bit and using stain kind of as a glaze allowed me to bring the top to a very beautiful finish that complements the piece entirely. This curbside, destined for the landfill find, has now come full circle with an entirely new life, and through the changes that I made, I am going to maximize my return on this by listing this for about $275. That's a fabulous return, considering I have maybe $20 worth of material into it and maybe a couple hours of very easy time. This was not difficult to do. This was not time consuming. It was a very small piece, very straightforward, lots of downtime, drying time, but other than that, putting it together was nothing. So that keeps my costs down and still keeps my return high, and I have no doubt that Alice is going to sell very quickly. They usually do. I don't want to jinx myself, but they usually do. Well, guys, thank you for joining me in the studio today as we brought back to life this solid maple piece by the Sweet Cummings Company. I can't imagine if it actually made it to the landfill and not in my studio. They don't make pieces like this anymore. But luckily, I have a storage area filled with pieces of the exact same quality, just waiting for another chance at life like this one. So if you haven't hit that subscribe button, be sure to do so. I would love to have you on board. Definitely give this video a like. Might not seem like much, but it really does help my channel out. And drop a comment down below and let me know what you think about Alice. Did I nail it or did I fail it, guys? All right, I'm gonna get going on to the next project, and I will see you guys here again next time on the flip side. Bye, friends.